My name is Ethan Vale, and I was 29 when my world fell apart. If you've ever loved someone so deeply that they became your reason to breathe, and then watched them walk away with tears in their eyes, you'll understand what I'm about to tell you. Before you judge me, stay till the end of my story. Because not everything is what it seems. And sometimes, love doesn't die, it just hides behind time. 6 years ago, I stood in the corner of a quiet courtroom, clutching the divorce papers with trembling hands. The air smelled like old wood, ink, and endings. Across the room sat Lena, the woman who once filled my life with color. Her eyes were red, her lips trembling, but her signature was steady, like she'd practiced letting me go. When the judge's gavel struck, I swear something inside me shattered. Lena stood up, placed the pen down, and whispered just loud enough for me to hear. Maybe one day, you'll understand why I had to do this. And before I could say a word, she was gone. That night, I found a crumpled pregnancy test in the trash bin. Negative. Or maybe she'd already thrown the positive one away, I'll never know. I remember standing in the rain, torn between running after her and letting her go. I chose silence. The kind of silence that echoes for years. For months, I tried to rebuild my life. A new apartment, new job, new faces. But nothing felt real. I'd wake up expecting to see her slippers by the door, her mug by the sink, her laughter filling the room. Instead, there was just emptiness. Friends told me to move on. But how do you move on from someone who left without giving you closure? It wasn't until a year later that I discovered she'd left the city entirely. No address. No number. Even her parents claimed they didn't know where she went. That's when the nightmares started. Dreams where I'd see her walking toward me in a fog, holding a baby. But every time I reached her, she'd fade away, whispering my name like a ghost. I tried dating again, but every woman felt like a placeholder. Lena's absence became a wound I stopped trying to heal. Instead, I wore it like armor. Then came the letter. 5 years after she vanished, a small, unmarked envelope showed up in my mailbox. Inside was a photo. A picture of a little boy standing near a seaside cafe, holding a red balloon. There was no message. No name. Just that one photograph, and a faint scent I recognized instantly. Lena's perfume. My hands shook. Could it be? No. It couldn't. But something deep inside me whispered that it was her. And the boy. The boy had my eyes. For weeks, I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. Every night I stared at that photo, trying to find answers between the pixels. Finally, I decided to find out for myself. I quit my job, packed my bag, and took the next train to the coastal town printed faintly on the back of the photo. Morro Bay. When I arrived, the town felt both peaceful and strange. Old houses, sea breeze, and the smell of salt in the air. I asked around about the cafe in the picture. And that's when I saw her. Standing behind the counter, tying her apron, was Lena. Her hair was shorter, her eyes older, but I'd know her anywhere. For a moment, I froze. 6 years of questions, all crashing into one impossible second. She looked up. Our eyes met. And the mug she was holding slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Her lips parted in shock. The color drained from her face. And then, in the softest voice, she said my name. Ethan. The world stopped. Before I could speak, the door behind her opened. And that same little boy from the photo ran inside, laughing. He had messy brown hair, and the same green eyes I saw in the mirror every day. My heart stopped beating for a second. Lena turned toward him and whispered something I couldn't hear. The boy looked at me, curious, confused. And then, with innocent honesty, he asked her. Mom, who's that man? Everything inside me broke again. But this time, it wasn't grief, it was something else. a mix of fear, disbelief, and a spark of truth I wasn't ready to face. Lena's hands trembled as she reached for the boy's shoulder. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked back at me. "Ethan, please. Not here. Not now." And before I could speak, she turned and walked out the back door, holding the boy's hand tightly. I followed, my voice barely a whisper. "Lena. Wait." But when I reached the alley, they were gone. Just like before. That night, I sat on the pier staring at the ocean, clutching that same photo. I had more questions than answers. Why had she left? Why send me the picture after all these years? And most of all, was that boy really my son? The waves crashed against the old pier as I sat there until dawn, staring at the horizon. My thoughts looped like an old film reel, her face, that little boy's eyes, her voice trembling when she said my name. She was alive. She was here. And she had a child. My child? The thought made my heart twist painfully. But one thing was clear, she didn't want me to know something. Something she'd been hiding all these years. At sunrise, I walked back to the seaside cafe. The Marrow Bean, a small wooden shop with peeling blue paint and a chalkboard sign that read homemade pastries, fresh sea air. It looked harmless, ordinary. But behind that door, I could feel the weight of a story that never ended. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped in. An older woman at the counter greeted me. "Morning, stranger. You're up early. Coffee?" "Yeah," I said, my voice rough. "Actually, I'm looking for someone. The woman who works here, Lena." The woman smiled softly. "Ah, Lena. Sweet girl. Comes in early most days. You a friend of hers?" I hesitated. "Something like that." She nodded. "She's got a boy. Cute kid. Always carrying that red balloon around. They've been here about 5 years now, I think." 5 years. That timeline hit me like a punch. She left 6 years ago. She moved here a year later. So she'd been hiding, close enough to breathe the same air. While I was breaking apart, thinking she was gone forever. I waited outside the cafe all day. People came and went. The sea breeze carried laughter, salt, and secrets. Around 4 p.m., she appeared, holding a paper bag and that familiar expression of quiet panic when she saw me. "Ethan," she said softly, glancing around. "Please, not here. You'll scare him." "I'm not leaving," I said. "Not until you tell me the truth." She sighed, setting down the bag. "You don't understand?" "No, Lena. For 6 years, I didn't understand anything. But I deserve to know. Who is he?" Her eyes filled with tears. She bit her lip, shaking her head. "I can't do this here. Meet me tonight. Old Lighthouse. After dark." And before I could say another word, she walked away again. That night, the lighthouse loomed like a ghost on the edge of the cliffs. Its beams swept across the water, slow and haunting. I waited near the base, my breath visible in the cold air. When she arrived, she was wearing that same brown coat she used to wear when we went on late drives. Memories hit me like waves, laughter in the rain, whispered promises under streetlights, the night she told me she was scared of losing me. Now, here we were. Lost anyway. "Why, Lena?" I asked quietly. "Why did you leave? Why disappear?" She looked away. "Because if I stayed, you'd both be dead." The words hung in the air like thunder. "What do you mean?" I stepped closer. "What are you talking about?" Her voice trembled. "Do you remember the night you signed that contract with Varnell Corp?" I frowned. "Of course. It was a construction project." "It wasn't just construction," she cut in. "You were working with people who weren't who they said they were. Ethan, they used your name, your company, to move money that wasn't theirs. My stomach turned. What? They came to me, she continued, her voice cracking. They said if I didn't leave you, they'd make sure you never saw another sunrise. They wanted you out of sight, out of reach. And when I found out I was pregnant. Her voice broke completely. I had no choice. I had to keep him safe. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. Everything blurred, the sea, the stars, her face streaked with tears. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her. But how could a secret like that stay buried for so long? Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. We could have faced it together. You don't get it, she said. They watched you. They followed me. Even after I left, I'd get calls, silent ones. I changed names, jobs, everything. Morro Bay was the only place quiet enough to disappear. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small USB drive. This is why I came back. Someone found me again. He said they know where you are. The USB felt heavy in my palm, like holding a loaded gun made of secrets. What's on it? I asked. Proof, she said softly. Proof that everything I did was to protect you. We stood there in silence, the waves roaring below us. I wanted to hate you, I admitted. But I couldn't. Every day I tried to move on, something reminded me of you. And now you tell me. I never stopped loving you, Ethan, she interrupted, tears shining in her eyes. I just stopped hoping we'd ever be safe. For a moment, it felt like the world stood still. The wind, the sea, even the lighthouse beam paused. She reached for my hand, and for the first time in years, our fingers touched. Then, a sound broke the silence. Click. A camera shutter. From somewhere in the dark. Lena froze. Her hand tightened around mine. Her eyes widened in fear. They found us, she whispered. I turned, scanning the cliffs. Nothing but shadows. Another click. This time, closer. Get inside the lighthouse, I said, pulling her toward the door. Now. But before we could move, a car engine roared to life on the road above the cliffs. Headlights flashed twice, once, then again, and vanished into the night. When I turned back to Lena, she was trembling. Ethan, she whispered, barely audible. If something happens to me, promise me you'll protect him. Don't say that, I said, gripping her shoulders. Nothing's going to happen. But she just smiled sadly. The kind of smile that hides a goodbye. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every second of our conversation, every word, every sound. Who took those pictures? Who knew we were there? I opened the USB drive on my laptop. There were dozens of files, numbers, names, documents linking Varnell Corp to offshore accounts, fake signatures, criminal transfers. Behind her leg, confused. My voice shook as I asked. Who are you? He grinned wider. I'm the man they made to replace you. The wind whipped around us as we stood on the empty street behind the cafe. The sea howled, waves slamming against the cliffs like nature itself was warning us to run. Lena clutched our son close, whispering his name under her breath, Noah. Her voice trembled, but her eyes stayed locked on the imposter. He smiled like he was enjoying a private joke. 6 years, he said smoothly, hands in his pockets. That's how long I've lived in your shadow, Ethan. You vanished so quietly, it was almost poetic. But you see, he tilted his head, you were never meant to come back. I took a step forward. Who are you? What do you want from us? He smirked. I already told you. I'm the man they made to replace you. Varnell needed a clean name. A trustworthy face. Yours was perfect. That's impossible, I said. No one can just make another me. Oh, Ethan, he chuckled softly. You really don't understand what kind of world you built for them, do you? He pulled a small card from his coat, a government ID with my face and his name. Ethan Vale. Every detail identical except one. The signature wasn't mine. They call it Project Mirrorman. His smile widened. It started as a cover operation, identity replication for covert finance deals. But once they realized how perfect the process was, he leaned closer. They decided to expand. Lena's voice cracked. You were part of this? He looked at her. She's even prettier up close. No wonder they told me to stay away from her. I stepped in front of her. Don't you dare talk to her. He laughed. Still protective, huh? Guess that's one trait we share. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. Every instinct screamed to punch him, but I needed to think. He wanted me angry. He wanted me distracted. Why now? I asked. Why come after us? His eyes glinted. Because you opened the file, Ethan. You woke them up. And now they want the evidence back. He took a slow step closer. Hand over the USB. Or I'll take it, along with your family. Before I could answer, a voice shouted from behind. Get away from them. It was the cafe owner, the older woman from before. She stood at the alley entrance, holding a shotgun like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. The imposter smirked. You brought friends? The woman's hands didn't shake. You don't belong here, Mirrorman. The sound of that word froze the air. Mirrorman. She knew. Before I could react, the imposter lunged. A flash of metal, a silenced pistol. The shot echoed softly, and the woman fell. Lena screamed. I grabbed Noah and pulled him behind the dumpster, my heart racing. The imposter stepped over the body, calm, unbothered. Always the hero, Ethan. You know how this ends. You run, I find you. You hide, I replace you. But if you just hand over the drive, maybe I'll let them live. I glanced at Lena. Tears streamed down her face, but she shook her head fiercely. No. Don't you dare. I reached into my jacket pocket, gripping the USB tightly. Then I looked at him, at me. The man who stole my life. I don't negotiate with thieves, I said. For a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance, maybe even admiration. Then he raised his gun. I grabbed a loose brick from the wall and hurled it. It hit his hand, the gun fired, grazing my arm, and I tackled him to the ground. We fought in the dirt, fists flying, faces blurring in the chaos. It was like fighting a mirror that hit back. Every punch landed twice, his and mine, until I didn't know who was who anymore. Blood smeared both our faces. The air stank of gunpowder and salt. He was stronger. Faster. Trained. But I had something he didn't, or rage. I grabbed the gun, pointing it at him. Who made you? I shouted. Who did this? He coughed, smirking even through the blood. You really want to know? Ask your father. My world stopped. What? I whispered. He laughed, a hollow, broken sound. Project Mirrorman started long before you were born. You weren't their first experiment, Ethan. You were their first success. Lena gasped. The world tilted around me. What are you talking about? I demanded. He grinned wider. You really think a kid from nowhere built a company like Varnell by himself? You think your father's money was old family inheritance? No. He founded the project. You're his prototype. And I'm your perfected copy. He spat blood and whispered. You and I were never supposed to meet. Before I could respond, tires screeched from the main road. Black vans, no logos. Doors slammed open. Armed men poured out. Run. Lena screamed. I grabbed her hand, clutching Noah against my chest as we darted through the alley. Bullets shattered the walls beside us. The imposter shouted something, but his voice was lost in the chaos. We ran past the lighthouse, down to the docks. The sea churned beneath us, moonlight slicing through the fog. "Where do we go?" Lena cried. I looked behind us, the vans closing in. There was nowhere left to run. I turned to her, breathless. "We have one chance. The USB, it's proof. If we get it out, someone will listen." She nodded, tears glistening. "But how?" Before I could answer, a shadow moved near the pier. A small fishing boat's engine hummed quietly, lights dimmed. An old fisherman waved us toward him. "Hurry," he called. "They're coming." We ran, but as I turned back one last time, I saw him. My double, standing on the dock, gun raised. He smiled faintly. "You can't escape yourself, Ethan." The gun fired. The world went black. When I opened my eyes, everything was quiet. Too quiet. The waves that had been roaring moments ago were gone, replaced by the hum of fluorescent lights. I was lying on a hospital bed. My arm was bandaged. My throat dry as ash. For a moment, I thought I was safe. Then I saw the reflection in the metal cabinet beside me. It wasn't my room. It wasn't my reflection. It was his. The man who wore my face stood across the room, dressed in a black coat. Calm. Unhurt. Smiling. "Good morning, Ethan," he said smoothly. Or should I say, version 1. I tried to sit up, but straps held me down. My wrists, my chest, my legs. Panic rose like fire. "Where's Lena? Where's my son?" I shouted. He tilted his head. "Safe. For now. They're in good hands. What do you want from me?" He smiled faintly. "Nothing you can give. I already have your life, your name, your company. What I need." He leaned closer, eyes cold and calculating. "Is your existence erased?" I struggled, the leather biting into my skin. "You can't do this." He chuckled. "They already did. You think you're the original? The husband, the father, the man with memories? No, Ethan. You're not the first, and you're not the only one." He pressed a button on a small device. A screen on the wall flickered to life, showing rows of faces, all identical. Me. Hundreds of me. Every version slightly different. Different scars. Different expressions. Different numbers. I couldn't breathe. "This is Project Mirrorman," he said softly. "The government's answer to loyalty. Perfect replacements. No family. No fear. Just obedience." My mind screamed. "You're lying." He smirked. "Then why do you dream of memories that never happened? Why do you remember a childhood house that doesn't exist? Why do you think Lena found that USB in your car?" My heart raced. It didn't make sense, it couldn't. He turned off the screen and walked closer, whispering in my ear. "You were never supposed to wake up, Ethan. You were just the test that worked too well." He walked toward the door, pausing. "Don't worry. Lena and the boy will be fine. We'll take care of them, just like you would've." And then he left. For hours, I lay there, trying to remember. Every laugh, every fight, every night we spent together. Were those real? Or just programmed memories? And then, a familiar voice. "Ethan?" Soft. Trembling. "Lena." She was standing by the door, eyes red, clutching Noah in her arms. I whispered her name, tears stinging my eyes. "Lena, please. Help me." She ran to me, unbuckling the straps. "They told me you were dead," she cried. But I knew it wasn't true. I grabbed her hand. We have to go. But before I could finish, Noah spoke. Mom, he's outside. The lights flickered. The door creaked open. He stepped in again, calm, precise, holding a gun this time. Enough running, he said. Hand over the child. Lena stood between us. You'll have to kill me first. He raised the gun slowly. I was hoping you'd say that. And then. A shot. But not from him. From her. Lena had grabbed the weapon from my bedside drawer, the one hidden under the patient chart. The bullet hit his chest. He stumbled back, eyes wide, a strange look of disbelief, like mirrors shattering from the inside out. He fell. Hard. The silence that followed was deafening. Lena dropped the gun, shaking. I caught her in my arms, both of us crying, from fear, relief, and a love that somehow survived even this. Noah climbed onto the bed, wrapping his tiny arms around us. For the first time in 6 years, I felt whole. Human. Until the heart monitor beside the bed beeped. It wasn't mine. It was his. His hand twitched. The monitor spiked. A faint smile crept across his lips as he whispered. You still don't get it, do you? He turned his head and looked directly at Noah. He's not yours either. And then, the line went flat. Lena froze. My chest went cold. What did he mean? I asked, my voice cracking. Lena's eyes filled with tears. She stepped back, shaking her head. Ethan, there's something I never told you. The room spun. What are you saying? She looked at me, broken, trembling, and whispered. The night I left, you weren't the only one they copied.